Hi, and welcome to the Examined Life, and today I'm going to be talking about 10 red flags that your therapist might be a narcissist. So let's get into it. The first red flag is, do you think that your therapist has a lack of empathy? Do you feel like they can't really relate to you, or that they're maybe insincere or not genuine in their interaction with you? Well, it could be that they have a lack of empathy. Or maybe they just don't have the life experience to relate to you. And that can definitely come partly with age, meaning that if there's a generational difference between you and the therapist, they may not be able to relate to you. So that doesn't necessarily make them a narcissist, but if this is something that's not clicking with you, you might definitely want to consider discontinuing if that's, a problem. Number two is they appear not to be listening. Now, if it seems like you just said something to your therapist and they come back with an answer that's totally out of the blue, that has nothing related to what you're telling them, or you say something to them and what comes back is something not even related, or a twisted version of what you just said, then they were not listening because they weren't interested. Okay, that's a big problem. They're there to help you. And if they're tuning out because they got their own personal problems going on, then what's the point? What's the point of being there? That's not therapy. And I will go more into this in another video. But it's also a sign of a lot of other things that are going on with a therapist who has narcissism. That is a telltale sign of a whole lot of other things, which could include projection, haughtiness, condescension, things like that. Okay, that they're not listening to what you're telling them, and they're making up stuff in their head if they do come back with something that doesn't relate to what you're saying. Number 3 is haughtiness. Now, for those of you who don't know what that means, haughtiness is when somebody is looking down on you. They're very rich, and they want to, or they have multiple high degrees, and they're condescending to you, like or patronizing. That's a telltale sign right there that they are narcissistic. Okay, anybody who's being condescending is narcissistic. That's a trait of narcissism. They think they're better than you. And let's see, if you were to point out some of these things to them, some of the things that you didn't like, or the interaction, or you felt concerned about, and if they get defensive, number 4, they get defensive if you give them feedback, and they become argumentative or become insulted, and they're oversensitive, that's another sign that they could definitely be a narcissist, because they should be open to adapting to what your needs are. That's what their job is, basically. As long as within reason and it's within their skill set, they should be able to do it. Number 5 is they're constantly playing the devil's advocate, which is a form of gaslighting, actually. I'll go more into this in another video, but how should I put this? If you were in a relationship with a narcissist and you were suffering from narcissistic abuse and PTSD and such, and you go to them and you're telling them, so-and-so said this, your narcissist told you that you were crazy and because something happened and they denied it, and you're like, he said that I was crazy, and the therapist takes your narcissist side, basically, and kind of reaffirms that that maybe you are crazy. Well, and they'll say, well, maybe maybe he was, the therapist stands up for the narcissist and makes excuses for them. And at the end of the day, you're the one who's wrong. Yeah, And by the end of the day, they're always taking the devil's advocate. They're making excuses for the people who are abusing you, and they want you to see things differently. And whatever you say, you're always wrong. No matter what, you're always the one who's wrong. They have to negate whatever you're telling them. And you're saying, well, I don't feel that this person is being supportive to me, and and they're just going to say to you, you need to accept that this person's going to be treating you poorly. What? What? Yeah. Believe me, I've had friends, as well as I had a spiritual director. She was a chaplain, and she wasn't a therapist, but she definitely would go out of her way to try and make me wrong in everything that I said to her. And she would do it in a way that was the way she talked to me was very calm, but at the end of the time I was talking with her, it was like I didn't feel very supportive. I didn't say that I was the one always wrong. and it was, I didn't get a whole lot out of it. They were just basically taking the side of the other person for the sake of taking the side of the other person, and thinking that that's somehow they're helping me. So I'm just saying that was definitely one. If they're doing it constantly, it's a form of gaslighting, okay, and unempowering you, and trying to take the side of the narcissist, and in reaffirming that you're crazy or you're dreaming or whatever they want to say. Okay, another one here is black and white thinking, and that means really basically overgeneralizing. So in the case of, let's say they're not listening to you, that was a trait I mentioned, number 2. Let's say they're not listening to you, but when they do listen to you, they overgeneralize what you're saying, and either you're all wrong, or the other person is right. You're the one who's the bad guy, basically. Or maybe you're the one who is the good guy, but you can do no wrong. I mean, it's such a black and white situation, and they tend to do this, and they villainize people as a way of controlling. It's a social control mechanism. So, if you came to them for, say, anxiety and depression, and somehow they're lumping you together with criminals, people who have antisocial behavior, when you've never exhibited any type of thing like that. I came to you because I have depression and anxiety. Oh, well, they're treating you like you're a criminal. And you get that feeling. Because they deal with a lot of other people who are criminals, probably people who were ordered to come to them through the court or whatever. What they do is, because you're just another client of theirs, they'll lump you in with them, and they'll treat you that way. Okay? It's just this ongoing black and white thinking. And this, sadly, has kind of permeated a lot of things. Cops think that way sometimes. Sometimes, not all of them. I mean, I've met a few cops who are actually kind of decent people. But they also have those they just will overgeneralize that everybody's the bad guy, or that you're guilty of something when you didn't do nothing, But it's not their place to be doing that. It's not helpful, and it's not healing to be villainizing somebody who doesn't deserve it. And even if they did deserve it, it's not their place to do it. They're there to heal everybody. Whether they're criminals or they're not criminals. They're there to help reform them, and not look down on them and be condescending. How is that helpful? How is that healing? So that number 7 is projection. This is part of the black and white thinking. Everything I've just described to you is partly what they do as part of the projection. Because many therapists and psychologists, and they go into the field of psychology and therapy because they're trying to heal themselves. And they see themselves as broken. But because they're in these positions, they have to put on airs, and project. So they project their brokenness onto you, and they try to heal themselves vicariously through you. That's basically what it comes down to. That's my experience with them and how I perceived it. It's what they're. If they can heal you, they think they can heal a part of themselves. Through projection. Go figure. But, narcissists are not necessarily the sanest people on the planet. So, not respecting your time is number 8. Meaning that if they cancel appointments at the last minute, if they come late to your appointment and they expect you to be waiting for them. I had that happen recently, multiple times. She just makes me wait 15 minutes. She comes in 15 minutes late. I'm running overtime. She's running overtime. Then she cuts my appointment short. Okay, that's disrespectful to you. And if you do it, then you're the one who's the bad guy, right? So that's number 8, not respecting your time. Number 9 is either being evasive or either it's the opposite. It's either being evasive and not answering or interacting with you in a honest way, or oversharing to the point of where they dominate the conversation with their own stuff. I've had both situations, and both of these therapists, in my opinion, at the end of the day, I think they were very narcissistic. Or they definitely had some narcissistic traits. Okay, but either they are evasive and they're dishonest and they're sharing with you and being real with you, which is part again of the lack of empathy and that haughtiness, or they just dominate the conversation with their opinion about what you should do with whatever it is that you got going, according to them, life according to them. Number 10 is being hypocritical. Now this one is a little bit harder to do because you're not with them 24/7. But if they do tell you something, they tell you one thing one week, and then another week that changes based on whatever happened to them. And I will give you actually an example of that in another video, but I just wanted to say that being hypocritical is definitely it seems to be, what I notice is it seems to be something that they miss about themselves. They're not able to evaluate their own self in a sense that they are being hypocritical, or doing something that they will advise you to do something, but they themselves, when they're put in that position, will do something else, or will do exactly what they told you not to do. And if you see any of these traits in your therapist, and if you feel that they're interfering with the therapy that you're getting, my opinion is it's time to reconsider being with a therapist or that particular therapist, and go out and find somebody else. I have another video coming up that's going to talk about a little bit about the history of therapy, and as well as my experience with therapists, and why I do think a lot of them could be very narcissistic, and that it's not necessarily the healthiest approach to trying to heal yourself from narcissistic abuse or PTSD. But thanks for listening, and please stay tuned, please subscribe. If you want to share your story, of narcissism in general, feel free to do so down below, or just give me your feedback about what you think this is all about. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. I am, by the way, I am a certified life coach. I do specialize in people who have PTSD. And, I got into that whole area of study because of my own experience. So I definitely can relate to a lot of what people are going through. But anyways, for the Examine Life, I want to thank you for listening, and please subscribe, and I'll see you in another video.